What is going on, interwebs? Day 4 of our 5-day serve challenge. We're getting close to the end here. As you guys are all
fast, huh?
Yeah, it's going by real fast. As you guys are all tuning in here, go ahead and comment your favorite learnings from days 1, 2, or 3. If you happen to miss days 1, 2, or 3, you can buy the recordings right here. You're going to have me shamelessly plug that multiple times today. If you have been with us for days 1 through 3, you already know how important this is. The workbook we go through, you're going to want to print it out. You're going to want to put it in your bag. This information, you're going to want to watch it again. If the postman comes to the door and interrupts, you're going to miss an important part. I don't know. There's going to be a reason why it makes sense for you to need this information again. We always hear it. And again, we will turn this in to a paid course come Friday evening that will cost 4 times as much. So go grab it now for $49 versus $200 on the Monday. As people are flowing in here again, go ahead and comment your favorite learnings from days 1 through 3. And I'm going to run us through a quick recap here for the first 3 days, if that's all right.
Let's get it.
I'm not going to let you get involved because I want it to go quickly.
That's fair.
I'm going to go through this lightning quick. Again, you have the recordings. You can go rewatch this stuff. The workbook will tell you the drills to practice. But we talked on day 1 about the fundamentals, and these are not suggestions. These are prescriptions. You've got to have your grip and your stance right if you want to hit your serve big. Talked about continental grip and how it's not just this index knuckle, but that your heel pad also needs to be on level too. We got into the stance and understanding that our feet are going to line up and point towards the outside net post. Lefties mirror to the other net post. Point of this is to get that right hip back and guarantee that we get the rotation in our upper body. Then we talked about the penalty box drills to make sure we get the rotation in the cartwheel capacity from the rear lateral pelvic tilt. Drill there was just keeping the arm up, and the focus is we want that arm up in the air like you just don't care for a real long time. And then we closed out day 1 with talking about how and where to toss the ball, how being it's got to be in your fingertips, but you can go ice cream cone or you can go fingertips. Talked about releasing at 1 o'clock, and we talked about eliminating all of the bend in your arm. That was day 1. We got into day 2, which honestly I think is by far the most important day. We talked about the salute motion or the right to left motion that we want to make with our racket to ensure we don't flop open in the waiter's tray. Then we moved into understanding how to get our elbow firing up to the ball instead of thinking about placing our racket down our back, which we hear a lot of confusion around. We moved right into how to activate the feet. We talked about the pulse-up drill and the concept of if your racket weighed 60 pounds, you really need to push into the ground and activate your feet to get that thing firing. And then we moved into day 3 where we really started to put all this together with some rhythm. And we talked about the weighted sock drill, which is where you're just going to put 3 tennis balls in a sock and get the understanding of rhythm on the service motion. We moved into the exercise called the 3-finger drill, the goal there being that we're releasing tension in our bottom 2 fingers and making sure that our hands are very relaxed as we swing. That's what's going to be necessary for the deep racket drop. And then finally, and I'm almost out of breath, we talked about the figure 8 drill to just really understand the rhythm of getting that racket moving. That was
day 4. Yeah.
How long was that? That was a 3-minute recap of days 1 through 3, and today is day 4. Shall we get this party started? I will recap, and then I'll be quiet because I've been talking for 3 minutes straight. I will recap days 2 and 3. If you connect those together, you're going to serve 15 miles per hour harder. Not to say today is not important, tomorrow is important, but
yeah, day 2 is
day 2 and day 3
is all about the mechanics that I think a lot of players are missing on their serve, and then 3 is the fluidity, the rhythm of getting it all together. Now, day 4, we're talking about pronation, the contact point, and the wrist snap. Okay, call it the wrist snap, but ultimately that's not the objective. Snap the wrist. Our objective is to have a good contact point, and a good contact point is going to lead into pronation. So this first exercise referred to as the DeHart drill. You might be wondering who DeHart is. DeHart is a phenomenal coach. Been doing it for a long time. We were at Tennis Congress, and he was talking and really teaching about how to lead with the edge of the racket. And we were like, this is a great drill, so we're going to incorporate it into our stuff.
Also of note, he has probably the best mustache I've ever seen on earth.
By far the best mustache. Yeah, incredible beard.
That's important also.
Yeah, incredible beard game. Right. All right. So the thing to keep in mind, a lot of times when we talk about leading with the edge, where players get lost, is that when the elbow goes up, a lot of times they're trying to turn the racket over too soon. But what we want to focus on is that the racket actually leads, let me lower this, the racket edge is actually what's leading to the ball. And then as the wrist begins to pronate, that's where we find the ball at the surface area. But a lot of students have a really hard time finding or being comfortable with leading with the edge. And that's what this drill is going to teach you to do. It's going to seem kind of quirky, right? You're going to want to do it maybe in your backyard. I don't know. You can do it on a tennis court.
You want to do it with somebody not on the court to the right of you if you're right-handed or left of you if you're left-handed. You're going to shank some balls here.
That's right. So the first thing to notice is how choked up on the racket I am. All right, just because it's going to give you better control of the blade. I am actually using a blade here, but the racket, the blade.
The Wilson blade.
Yeah.
The blade.
So from here, I'm not tossing super high. I'm just tossing back enough, high enough rather, that I can allow the racket to come through. And you'll notice, like, I'm not worried about being at full extension here. Ordinarily, I'd have my arm, well up here. I'm just focused on learning to lead with the edge of the racket. And what's happening here is I'm actually hitting the ball with the edge of the racket. It's sending the ball to the sidewall, right? That's what we were saying. Maybe you don't do it next to people playing. But I'm just going to run through this. I'll let you watch it. It's going to be loud.
Yikes.
Okay, maybe I'll just manually run through it. Why there's so much noise there? All right, but so not a super high toss, working through the edge. And then this part is important. You'll notice that I'm actually kind of freezing. And I'm doing this by squeezing with my bottom two fingers and just the thumb. I'm creating this tension right at the end to give it some solid impact. Otherwise, it's just going to be super flimsy.
Kind of like you're hammering a nail into a wall, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Right. Like, yeah, you're not swinging so forcefully that you're driving the hammer through the drywall. You got to give it a little bit of tension so that you're controlling the head of the hammer.
Little tap-tap-a-roo.
That's right. So this is the drill. This is the first part of it. And then we'll jump into the second part of this drill. And this is actually making contact with the ball. And this is when you start to learn to pronate, the first stages of pronation. And it seems kind of goofy, but if you imagine like my hand being the edge of the racket, all I'm doing is as I'm working towards the ball, the hand turns out to make flush contact with the ball. So right here, you'll see that. I lead with the edge and then making contact. So for a lot of you, and then Ken was explaining this to a student, if you're trying to figure out how to hit a slice serve, this is the easiest way to do it, right? It's not going to have the MPH that you're looking for an advanced serve, but it's also the beginning stages of adding slice. And just to put this out there, every flat serve has a little bit of slice on it. No matter what, I don't care who's hitting it. It could be Ben Shelton. There's a little bit of slice on it. All right. So step one, hit the ball with the edge of the racket. And then step two, right before contact, open the face up, as you can see here. I know the racket's moving kind of fast, so it's hard to see, but that's the racket face there. So you're just turning the racket face open.
And what Nate was talking about with slice, I think in my experience coaching, the hardest part about teaching slice is getting students to buy into the idea that if their racket goes that way, the ball will actually go that way in the box. But the DeHart drill, where you're hitting that ball with the edge of your racket, if you then just come around the outside of it and shop the outside of the ball, that's your beginner slice serve. So that's what Nate's referencing here with the racket pattern here.
Indeed. All right, so let's jump into the next exercise, huh?
Why think the TV just doesn't recognize that your hands exist?
It refuses to acknowledge me. All right, let's go to exercise 2. It's all about contact.
Yep. I will take the reins here. So a lot of folks are going to ask, how high do I throw my toss? Where do I make contact? Where do I fully extend? Like, we know we don't want to make contact like this. The goal is to fully extend racket contact. And despite what you're going to see on the Pro Tour, our prescription for you would always be that your toss is never too much higher than as high as you can reach, because you're just creating more variance and more things that can go wrong. And if you throw your toss too high, what you'll find is that the force of gravity pulling down on that ball is actually fighting against you, trying to impart power at contact. So the drill that we work on to find the correct contact point, we know that we're going to release at eye level. We know that we want the toss to be at 1 o'clock. Where we want to make contact with the ball is where we're fully extended. So when you look at Nate here, you're going to see that at full extension, his arm is reached up as high as he can. You're going to see he even pulls his shirt up a little bit. And you're going to feel that stretch in your right oblique right here for righties, or in your left oblique for lefties as they reach up in the other direction. The drill is to clamp the ball on a surface. We're here on like a soft curtain. You can do this on a chain link fence. It can kind of mess with your rack a little bit. The ball can bounce all over the place, but you can do this really on any flat wall that you're not worried about sort of smacking. And the goal here really is just for you to clamp the ball and then sort of do a power up check. Look and see, you know, am I at full extension or am I in here? When you're frozen and clamped on the wall, why don't you go ahead and show them that? Yep. When you're frozen and clamped on the wall, then you can pause and look and say, is my right oblique pulling? Am I at full extension? And that's the point of the drill. This is very much a self-assessment.
So the main thing when you're doing this, you're going to have to release, make sure that you're releasing pretty close to the surface area. You want the ball to kind of graze the surface area as it's going up. Now, we get asked this all the time when we show this video. A lot of times people will ask, well, you know, are you supposed to let the ball drop? Yeah, but you really want to be careful with the degree in which the ball drops. So if you look at the tour, every player is allowing the ball to descend several inches. Problem is to what Scott was alluding to, is if your toss is so high that you're allowing the ball to drop several feet, a foot, that's going to be problematic with Tommy and a host of other players.
I mean, that exact, I'm going to call it an error. That error is actually what's caused havoc for a lot of the pro players that you're very aware of on their serve, right? I think most people would argue Sharapova's serve yips largely come from that toss to the moon.
And toss, super high. So how high should you be tossing? Well, you'll see here, the minimum is as high as your arm can extend, right? So where the ball goes up here, what you would simply add is how high can you jump, or how high are you interested in jumping? And then what you see is the ball descending just several inches. But so from here, my goal here is to drop the ball and find good contact. All right. So if you watch it again, just nice and steady toss. As the racket comes around, pay attention here, because this is why the exercise that we did a moment ago is so important. This is the edge of the racket. So as the edge of the racket works up, it looks as if I'm going to make contact with the edge, it being here. But as it swings up to contact, it traps the ball on the curtain. And this is just teaching you how to find optimal contact. That's the goal there. And that's the trap the ball drill. Nothing super crazy. I will say, if you're like, well, Scott, Nate, I don't have
a wall I can smack.
A wall. The other way that you can do it is take, you know, a good 10, 15 feet behind the baseline where you're actually serving, and focus on, as you toss, holding your contact point and really swinging up on the ball. And when you're holding it, what you'll see is that the launch point is much, much higher. You want to make sure that you're holding that contact point. So after that, what we're going to start talking about is internal shoulder rotation.
With the thumb down drill.
Yep. All right, so the thumb down drill. Pronation, remember, is simply as my palm is in and my wrist then starts to pronate. My forearm is actually pronating, so that my palm is here. By the time, here goes my racket. So at contact, what will happen is that the palm will then go out. And we like to tell students to focus on, at the end of the shot, to getting the thumb down. Because if the thumb's down, the palm has to be out.
Like in Gladiator. Nice.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's Gladiator.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Which, man, apparently they're making a sequel to, which will be interesting. Yeah.
The Gladiator or 300?
Gladiator.
Both good movies.
Trust you. Don't second guess yourself. Trust yourself.
Movie buff.
So let's check this out in real time. So you'll notice I've got the ball. The ball is the racket. Nothing's in my hand here. I'm just focusing on keeping the palm down to start.
It's very distracting. Why did you put this stuff here?
I think just to illustrate that you don't need it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, internet. That's largely confusing. You don't have to do anything with your racket and balls
You
like
just
that.
don't need it right
You're
now.
gonna get that question like, do I have to put my racket and 3 balls on there to understand the thumb down rule?
I think everybody would have reduced otherwise. So palm out. And you want to really, you want to focus on doing this right. Like, get the knee bend, like load the energy the way that you're supposed to. You want to be in this archer's pose. We like to call it, power position, archer's pose. But the one thing to be mindful of, I'll keep reiterating this, is make sure that the hitting arm is on the non-dominant side of the body. This is big because this is where power comes from. So now as you work up, what you'll see is that the palm goes towards my head, then it's facing out towards contact would be, and then the thumb goes down. This is a great way to learn how to properly pronate, and the easiest way to do it is without having the racket initially. And then as you get comfortable with it, then we want to go ahead and pick up the racket. Oh, I did need the racket. The hero always wins, Scott. All right, so on this part, what you're focusing on is actually spiking the ball down. So you want to toss the ball so it's ever so slightly behind your front foot. And when you do it, when you make contact, the important part here is that you keep the elbow relatively up. So from here, you'll see that I'm spiking down, elbows up as I initiate the swing. I'm at a good 90 degrees, and then spiking the ball down. And this is where you see the thumb. The thumb is down, just like in the previous drill. This is where we want the orientation of the thumb. Okay. So after you're comfortable with this is actually the fun part. This is when it gets really good. If you've ever wondered, they're like, well, hey, how do you hit an overhead over the back fence, right? So somebody gives you an overhead, you spike it down on the opposing side of the court, and it goes over the back fence. It's definitely a flex, right? This is all internal shoulder rotation and focusing on good pronation. So here I'm giving the toss a little bit of height, but not a ton. And then I'm focusing on really getting on top of the ball. And this is where you'll see that the elbow stays up here. So I'm essentially really working through this internal shoulder rotation to spike the ball. And there.
Little rabbit foo-foo.
Yeah, we can see that the thumb.
This is always my favorite part of the serve challenge.
Yeah.
Where I bring up the nursery rhyme, Little Rabbit Foo-Foo, and see how many of you watching have heard of this. Because Nate apparently didn't have loving parents enough reading.
My parents were trying to scar me with a horrible nursery rhyme.
Little Rabbit Foo-Foo hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice, and bopping them on the head. Bopping them on the head. This is what Nate's doing. He's bopping them all on the head.
It's a nursery rhyme about killing.
Throw in the comments if you're familiar with is it Little Rabbit or Little Bunny Foo-Foo? I guarantee you 95% of the people watching from the nursery rhyme.
I'm sorry if you have.
I'm going to change day 4 to Little Rabbit Foo-Foo Day in future serve challenges.
yeah. And here, I want to show you. This has nothing to do about like swinging super fast, right? It's just the mechanics. And there we see the ball.
Little Bunny Foo-Foo.
Yeah, we see the ball spiking up there.
Whatever you're teaching right now.
And then it's going to go all the way up. I'll freeze it. And there's the ball. There's the ball there, right? So it's all about getting this contact, keeping the elbow up and the thumb down. This is good pronation. And then you're just going to apply it to the serve to where you're getting the toss up and then really focusing on getting the arm extended. Now, the disclaimer here, when you're at the net, you can hit the ball down. There's not a single serve ever hit by anybody that's under 6'6", 6'7", where they are hitting down on the serve. We know for a fact, sport science, that you've got to be somewhere around that 6'7" range to get contact even remotely on top. So if we look at like an Isner, right? Like Isner could make contact about here. Yeah, it's never like here. It's just slightly on top.
What is he, 6'11"?
He's tall. But it's on the forehead, right? The rest of us, when we make contact, we are swinging up and we're swinging towards the chin. Okay. Now, the actual contact itself will occur between the chin and the nose, but ultimately you're aiming for the chin to be flush with the ball.
I'll add something to the little buddy food drill.
Oh, please do.
One thing we want to distinguish as coaches, bad instruction, and I don't typically rag on coaches, but what I really don't like hearing is a coach saying, snap your wrist, thinking about snapping your wrist. What we're doing here is we're creating the segmentation so that you understand what this feels like, but what should create it is full extension. When you get to full extension, and I'm going to bend down here so you can see, when you get to full extension, your hand doesn't really have anywhere else to go but to pronate and come into this thumb down drill. So if you're getting full extension, like we talked about in exercise 2 here, pronation should happen naturally. And then at the top, you understand now to just let it keep doing its thing with the thumb coming down.
Absolutely. All right, that is day 4. But it's something that a lot of players struggle with is really getting the contact point and pronation. But as we said, remember, good pronation is a byproduct of a good contact point.
Our feedback consistently has been that day 4 it's not complicated to do. It's just I didn't know that, right? So especially the idea of full extension creates pronation without me thinking about what my wrist is doing, especially with how do I spike overheads over the fence and create that same motion on my serve. So now you've got all that stuff. Any questions you guys have at all from days 1 through 4? Today's a little bit light in terms of like confusing material. So we typically have a lot fewer questions today, but start firing them away here.
I saw a question earlier. Somebody had asked before we got started and was asking about supination. Like, does it happen? Is it possible to supinate on the serve? And it is. Somebody had asked a question, I think, on day 2, that they were swinging across their body and hitting themselves in the ankle or the shin, rather. The only way that you're going to supinate is if your toss is wildly out towards the right of you as a righty. Like, so if I'm trying to toss at 1 and also my toss is over at 3 o'clock, as I reach for it, it's going to be really unnatural for me to then again pronate. So I'll end up trying to bring it back across, swing across my body where the arm will supinate. But if your toss is anywhere between 12 o'clock and 1:30, you're going to pronate if you have good contact.
Yep, at full extension.
At full extension.
All right, just go in order here. B-Man, please come and give a clinic in Northern Virginia. We're suffering out here. B-Man, we are holding a clinic exactly 1 month from today on Saturday, October 12th in Virginia Beach, Virginia, less than 3 hours from where you're watching right now. Just come down here and hang out.
That's right.
We still have 2 spots left.
Thoughts or something in the water. You could take in the festival as well. Come learn some tennis. Come hear some music.
We should promote that way. Like, hey, come party and hit hard serves.
Or it might just be the tournament. We don't know.
Yeah, that's tough to say. Definitely makes the city a bit more vibrant. Okay, Julian says, will these videos be available online in our player dashboard? Yes. So if you have bought the recordings, 2 things will happen. You'll get an email that tells you exactly where to go inside of your dashboard to get it. It also has the link to download the workbook. So it might show up in your spam folder depending on your email client. Do that. So if you've already bought the recordings, that's how you access them. If you're a PlayYourCourt Plus member already, you just get access to these videos. So go to the premium courses section of your PlayYourCourt account, and we're uploading these videos daily. So the second we hit, broadcast over, I download the video, we upload it to the platform. It should be there probably before 8 p.m. tonight each day. So you could already go in there and see days 1 through 3, and day 4 should be there within a couple hours of us shutting it down here. Let's see here. See if you can decipher when this question was. So back at 12:11, we should have been talking probably about the edge to the ball drill. It looks like the racket is faced at the right-hand net pole. So I think this is a question about the DeHart drill.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Yeah. You're trying to exactly right.
That's a great pickup, Steve. Yeah, you want to be angled off, and we didn't acknowledge that. You want to be angled more towards that 45 where you're at that net post so that you're driving the racket at what would truly be like a 1 o'clock. B-Man
having the same question here. His racket appears to be facing forward. Is that optimal, or should it face to the side? So we just answered that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tomahawking towards the net post.
Yep.
Are the videos for prior days only available after all 5 days are completed? No, so sorry, I just answered this. Yeah, Andy, they're already in there. So if you missed any of day 1 through 3, it's under premium video courses in your PlayYourCourt account. I love that we're getting so many questions. And the thing that I like to promote the hardest, this is like your worst nightmare right now.
It's good. Hey, we were here for the people. That's what they want.
Okay, these are the questions. I'm just going through them. Purchasing the recording of the challenge and the workbook, does it include the serving course you are showing us now? Yes, this does. Okay. Some instructional questions.
Yeah,
Just as you had hoped.
what do we got?
How do I put everything together correctly? I have beautiful shadow swing, thumb down, but when I put the real ball, then all things are falling apart. I'm going to take a guess here, and then you're going to come in and say.
I'm going to say probably the same thing you're saying.
I'm guessing it's tension. Because for me,
Okay.
typically when people are shadow swinging, it's really easy to be fluid. And fluidity and full extension is what creates the thumb down, which is what Sutira is saying they're having success with. My guess is when you get the ball in there, the grip starts to tense up. And it could be a combination of tension and maybe toss.
Yeah. I hate saying it.
It's hard to know this without seeing your stroke, but that's our best guess.
Practice, but it's how you practice it too. I think you go from shadow strokes, and then I think you go to hitting a ball, but without a target. So maybe you turn around and you actually face the back fence or the back curtain as you're doing it, and just focus on solid contact. Take the illusion out of it, right? Because when we turn around and we face the net, it's like, I got to hit up over this net, but I got to hit it down so that, and it can kind of change the mechanics. We're thinking about what needs to happen in order to put the ball into the box. Once you have done the shadow strokes and then you feel successful making solid contact, then move up to the service line, hit some serves, drop back to what would be the 60-foot line, hit some serves, then drop back to the baseline. I think that would probably be, if we were working in person, that would probably be the progression that we'd work on to see if we could get it flowing fluidly.
This is true. Bunny foo-foo. Just had to let you know that everybody's heard of it. I'm going to ignore Patrick or Steve, who said he's never heard of it. We're not going to post that on the screen.
Yeah, Steve.
I don't believe you, Steve.
We had a good childhood.
Can you review what to avoid on a swing so one does not hurt their shoulder? I've got a quick list, and then you'll add to it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Contact behind your body, like behind the plane of your body, will really hurt. Contact closer to 12 o'clock will really hurt. So like when you're impinging your shoulder, is that what you're doing with the Roddick photo? When you're really impinged versus out here at 1 o'clock, that'll cause problems. Clamping your elbow, let me move this off the screen. Clamping your elbow down in here will create severe rotator cuff issues. I learned that the hard way at age about 15, 16. What else you got? I listed impingement.
Yeah.
So clamped elbow, tension in your hands.
So I pulled this photo down of Roddick. We have this here in our office. And the reason I pulled it down is that I've said numerous times that you can make contact at 12 o'clock for a flat serve. It's absolutely true. But the only safe way to do it is if you're getting a tilt to where you can see Roddick's head is actually, slanted. It's horizontal. It's not vertical, because this is what's allowing the safety of the shoulder. So 12 o'clock can happen, but if you make contact where, as Scott mentioned, if you make contact and your head is not on a horizontal plane, so when you hit and you're more like here, you're going to be in trouble with the shoulder. Now, if you get in this vertical plane to where the head goes more horizontal, your shoulder is going to be safe. It's advanced. It's super advanced. But I like addressing this because we did a YouTube video about a month ago, and I talked about contact at 12 o'clock. And part of this was prior, I guess it was more than a month ago, because it was prior to Wimbledon. And then the big questions came out about Alcaraz, about how did he beef up his serve? How did he get up to 130 at Wimbledon? Well, he moved the contact point from a 1 o'clock position closer to 12, because you elongate the head of the shoulder when you do this. But you've got to be really safe when you do that. So can you get more power? Absolutely. If you're not playing at an advanced level, I don't advise you to do it, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze of getting injured. But, if you're playing at a more advanced, that's something that you can play with. Making that contact is 12 as long as you have that tilt where your head's on a horizontal plane.
True that.
Yeah.
Ray Gessner says, good job, guys. Tell John Fraser on the team I said hello from Bradenton. Ray, we definitely
Nice. Thanks, Ray.
Will you go back to the contact on the curtain video example?
The what?
The drill where we're clamping the ball on the curtain. So Stewart says, today the contact point in the demo was above the center of the mains, not the center of the racket. Is that best or intended? What I'll say, so yeah, that's not the sweet spot is the question. We would rather you hit it in the middle, but for this drill, you're not going to be perfectly clamped because the ball's going to roll a little bit as you make contact with the surface.
Yep.
So this is more just a drill to make sure your toss is within the correct range and that you're getting that full extension and then self-assessing if all those things are happening correctly.
I will say this, though. It's also dependent upon the racket you're playing with.
True.
So,
but that ain't it no matter what racket you're playing with.
not true.
Really?
Not true. So the sweet spot where for traditional rackets have been more, what we look at center, because of the modern game and the more like slingshot of the strokes, the sweet spot on a lot of frames has been moved up ever so slightly. So it's not, this is a great example with this blade. Is this a great, and let's be honest, this is all the sweet spot, right? Like that's not. But here, are you going to get great contact? Is it going to feel great? Yeah, absolutely. If you hit it here, is it going to feel great?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right? So it's not that they've necessarily replaced the sweet spot. They've extended the sweet spot in a lot of these frames to really adhere to the modern game. So I'm a little off center here, but I'm actually still pretty close to the sweet spot. But
Look at how defensive we got, Stuart. Look at that. Very useful material. I learned a lot. Thank you. That's why we do it. We love the props. Glad it's helping. Okay. Could the best height of the ball height? Yes.
I decided the ball height.
What is the best way?
What is the best
I
height?
think what is the best height is what we're looking for. We covered this briefly. So the idea is minimum is at full extension like Nate is here. You don't want to throw the ball any lower than this. Otherwise, you're going to be cramped up hitting your serve. And we don't want a whole lot on top because we don't want the ball falling down. If you jump in your service motion, this is going to need to be a little bit higher because Nate is stationary on the ground. So you would need to adjust for how high off the ground you're going to get. In my case, maybe half an inch. Not very much, maybe a sheet of paper. But yeah, this is what we're looking for. And the best way to practice a consistent ball toss with swinging your racket, I think that's kind of like rewatch days 1 through 3, right? I mean, we kind of plug it all together. We like to compartmentalize the toss as an individual thing. And then on day 3, we started to introduce how to do it with the right to left. I think rather than give you a super long-winded question, I would say go rewatch day 3. Is that fair?
I concur.
Okay. How do you both supinate and hit slice? You're going to talk about probably at the end on the follow-through.
Yeah, how do you both? So you don't really supinate on an advanced slice. So when you're learning slice, you supinate a bit. So this becomes a little complicated. I'll try to give you a brief explanation of this. There's continued pronation and there's discontinued pronation. So some pros have continued pronation. So although that they're slicing,
get ready, nerds, here it comes.
But although that you're slicing, by the time you make contact, you're still pronating out, right? Then you see some players that actually, when they slice, it is more continued, or it's discontinued pronation, and it does turn into supination, but only at the end. So as the racket's moving, you'll see that the hand cups. Let me move this comment. You'll see that the hand cups at the end to really make that slice bite. So yeah, I think for most players, they learn to slice and have the discontinued pronation, which actually turns into supination at the very, very end. And then more advanced players are going to continue to pronate. But they're both right, so I think it's personal preference. I hope that helped.
It didn't help me, but Kat, hopefully that was what you're looking for.
You're better for it.
Thomas C. says, racket on the dominant side, very important, but please demonstrate further With the right to left, the racket face goes behind your head, while only the handle remains on the dominant side.
Trying to.
Yeah, I'm going to reread that again to make sure I'm processing. So, racket on the dominant side is important, but with the right to left, the racket face goes behind your head. That's true. In the salute, the racket goes behind the head, while only the handle remains on the dominant side. So I think he's looking for clarification of like, yes, the right to left creates the strings are behind your head, but the handle is still on the non-dominant side. Just show him.
Yeah, I think even if, we'll just show you what should be happening, and hopefully that clarifies things, right? So Sebastian Corda here. What you'll see is the right to left occurring, right? And so as the racket moves in this right to left motion, you're seeing the elbow on the other side of the plane. You're seeing the hitting elbow on the non-dominant side. While the hitting, maybe that's what he's referring to as the handle, but the hand itself with the racket listing there. The racket plays a little bit of catch-up though, right? So the racket starts moving once the legs are initiated. And so for a pinpoint, a player with pinpoint, this would occur when the back foot pushes up. For the rest of us with like a platform, it'd be when the energy goes down. And so from right here, you'll see that the racket doesn't continue in this right to left. The racket is going to drop as a byproduct of energy going up. So if you watch his legs, the legs straighten out, and that initiates the racket drop. All right, so the right to left is just really about getting the hips open and pulling that racket into the saluting phase. Hopefully that covered it. Hopefully that answered the question.
I thought it was useful. Thomas, hopefully that got you. If you're not, if you have any follow-on questions, throw them down below. Andy, I'm going to help you live right here, my dude. So if you've never had a PlayYourCourt account before, that email that you're going to get is going to tell you how to create one. If you already have one, you're just going to log in. You'll navigate to the video courses section. Then there's a little tab at the top that says premium video courses. That's where all these recordings are going to be. And if you're still lost in there, support@PlayYourCourt.com. We have an unbelievable CS customer service team that will get back to you within a couple hours. So email them there if you're not able to do that. And they'll probably even jump on a call with you and show you exactly what to do if you need it. So the toss is at 1 o'clock. Is that to the left of the right net posts? Yes. I try to use the post to help me toss. Is that okay? What are your thoughts on that? I don't like that, but maybe you're okay with it. I prefer just thinking clock because the net is noon. I'll deliver my info and then you disagree with me. But
he's saying the post, right?
Net post up.
Yeah, I think
inside that.
Yeah, it's slightly inside. It's not
the net. It's like these guys, the
sticks. Yeah, it'd be a little bit closer to. But I think that's great that you're using
a single sideline, honestly.
Yeah. But if you look at this like a clock, right? What Scott's saying with the 1 o'clock, and I'll try to do this justice. At 12 o'clock, it's directly above his head.
I'm going to provide clarity here too. The way I coach is both are correct, but I actually like the clock on the ground. Yeah. So like I'm thinking like the clock is laying flat on the ground and pointing to the net is 12 o'clock and pointing down the single sideline is 3 o'clock. So I know if I'm like in between the two, I'm at 1:30.
Yep.
And then I adjust over. That's how I coach it. But I've seen both work fine because the clock is shaped the same whether this way.
Yeah. So 12 o'clock, obviously being here, and then 3 o'clock. You'll have players that toss at 3 o'clock. They'll toss parallel to the baseline. Federer does it. I think it's very difficult to control the toss on a flat surface.
Say that because they're releasing there, but they're pulling. The ball is moving back towards 1 o'clock at contact.
Exactly. And it can be helpful in a kick serve. We don't advise it a ton for recreational play. I think it's very, very difficult to kind of control unless you're just serving all the time. I used to toss parallel to the baseline when I served every single day as a young man. Play all the time now, so I don't do that. But Scott likes to tell players to focus on allowing that hand coming down and touching the thigh. And then when it goes straight back up, it's going to find a truer 1 o'clock. And so from here, the teal line would represent a truer 1 o'clock. So as Scott's saying, it's more towards like the singles line. But I think it's great that you have a reference point. I would just maybe bring it into the single side line here.
Yep.
I think that'll be adequate.
Cool beans. Jake asks, and we're not talking about kick serves on this challenge, but we will throw you some bonus info because we're trying to add power. Kick serves inherently don't do that. But where should the toss be for a kick serve for a righty? It's going to be more in your back right butt cheek pocket. So like more at 11, but then also behind you so that you can get behind the ball and create that top spin brush up the back. I don't want to get into too much detail on that here because this is we have tons of videos. I mean, do go on YouTube on our channel and just search for kick serve videos, and that'll really give you like a detailed breakdown on this, Jake. I think that'll be the most helpful. What is the best? There we go. What is the best ball toss height? How do you best practice a consistent ball toss without swinging a racket? We already answered that one. Steve, thank you. Should the toss start from right to left or straight into the court? Nate just covered this. So like Federer, really high-level players will sometimes list over here to 3 o'clock, but the goal is the ball always ends up in that same 1 o'clock location, no matter how athletic you are and the way that you get it there. Andy, thank you. Stuart, thank you. Jill, thank you. Let's see here. What I did is clear. It's unclear. Oh, here we go. Kat says, what I do is clearly the discontinuous pronation, but it's unclear to me how to slice any other way.
I think that's fine. That doesn't matter. If the slice is giving you a result that you're happy with, I want to try to pronate. If you're not getting quite enough bite, try to add what I was saying at the end. Try to finish with your palm up. So when you actually finish the stroke, it'll look like this. All right, that's how you want to finish with the palm up, and it'll just give it a little bit more like bite where the ball pulls off.
Kind of like the old school butler holding the towel on his arm. His hands are like this. This is a stupid analogy.
It drove a point. It's good.
Steve, you don't ever have to apologize to us for going off to play tennis.
Yeah, you're good, man.
Christopher.
Oh, there's our guy.
Christopher, what's going on, dude? It's been a minute. Thank you for the nice words. Quick question. When hitting a pinpoint serve, so when that foot is sliding, at what point of the motion should the back foot come forward? I think just show that visually is going to be the win, right?
Yeah, and it's going to differ for a lot of players. It's kind of personal preference here. If you watch Korda in this particular one, once the toss is up at this point, and you can see before the racket has really initiated through the right to left, that is when he starts pulling the back foot up. So it's just before the power position. And this is pretty common. So if you think about pulling the back foot just as you're reaching the power position, that's a pretty good timing mechanism. Sometimes you'll see it a little bit earlier. Sometimes you'll see it a little bit more delayed. But ultimately, if you kind of focus on going through your stance, and then as you get to the power position, that foot meets the power position. So try to time it so that the foot comes up as you reach the power position.
Indeed. Trying to purchase the videos. I have a PlayYourCourt account already. When I click /recordings, it asks to create another account. Let me give you a different link, and I'll throw it on the screen here. So, Ray, you can go here, and I'm going to leave this up for a second because it is a long one. But if you go here to PlayYourCourt.com /challenges/sign-up/serve-challenge and just go through the normal registration process here, it'll then land you on the same checkout page that link that you're referencing to is bringing you to, and then you can use the same email address and buy everything that way, and it should sync the two things up. If for some reason that doesn't work, it really should, but if for some reason it doesn't, support at PlayYourCourt.com. Unbelievable customer service team will hook you up. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds because I know that URL is a doozy. So I'll leave that up while I find the next question here. Getting pretty close to the end of the questions, it looks like. I mean, I gotta put this on the screen. Check this out, hey, Doug. Recommended the course to a bunch of friends. I went on the court yesterday. Literally, this course just broke 10 years of bad habits.
Let's go.
Brandon, that is
That's why we
want
do
to
this.
hear.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Makes this fun for us.
For sure. Appreciate that, man.
I know I said it on day 2 or day 1 or whatever. It's fun to have like feedback. Like when you start a YouTube video, you know what doesn't happen? This. We don't get to talk to you. Like we just film and we're like, well, I hope they like that. I don't know. See what happens. So we love working with you guys.
Some dude that's like, I would double bail you.
That's right. Yeah, when we post on
Awesome.
YouTube, you get really nice people, and then you get what we like to call engagement.
Yeah, 99% is phenomenal feedback, and 1% is engagement.
That's right. Gavin says, "Thanks, guys. Looking forward to giving this a try. Have a good one, you as
Thanks,
well,
man. Appreciate it,
guys." There you go. Stuart confirming that my directions I gave Ray are going to work. So give that a whirl. Also, if you missed it on the screen, it'll be down in the comments. Whether you're watching this on our Facebook page or our YouTube page, you can scroll back down through the comments, and that's there. Guys, it looks like that is the end of our questions. Tomorrow is day 5, where we kind of wrap this all up, put a nice bow on it. Again, re-review days 2 and days 3, and I will shamelessly throw the recordings on the screen again for those of you who haven't gotten these yet. Go here and do this. Seriously, go here and do this if you don't have these recordings. Rewatch day 2, day 3. Really want to make sure you're getting that right to left motion. Really want to make sure you're entering that correct racket drop. That's where most of the power is going to come from. And then I think the stuff we covered today, it's not hard. It's just maybe you didn't know it. So hopefully it helps. We will see you tomorrow for day 5, our last day of the Serve Challenge at 12 p.m. Eastern. And we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Have a great day, everyone. See you soon.